Week 3 is in the books, so let's dive into some players that I'm looking to trade for right now. Starting with the current RB1 through 3 weeks, Jonathan Taylor, who has been on fire to start the year with basically back-to-back games of 30-plus fantasy points. What we have seen from Jonathan Taylor through 3 games this year and his final 4 games of last season as well has been nothing short of spectacular. In those 7 games, he has rushed for over 100 yards 6 times, including 3 games over 150 yards. He has scored 10 times with 3 multi-touchdown games, and at least through his 3 games this year, he has seen 9 targets, which is a 17-game pace of over 50 targets, which is not elite usage by any means, but he hasn't broken 40 targets in a season since 2022, and the last time he saw 50 targets was in 2021 during his RB1 overall breakout season in his second year. So through the last 7 rolling games for Jonathan Taylor, we have seen elite rushing totals, a lot of touchdowns, and then with Daniel Jones this year, his target numbers have increased to a level that we haven't seen in years from him. In terms of what this means for the rest of 2025, we might be witnessing this year's version of Saquon Barkley. Massive efficiency on a per carry and per touch basis. Huge plays already, having multiple runs and a reception over 40 yards, and a lot of touchdowns. 4 already through 3 games, and he could be on his way to 20 by the end of the year. There's a legitimate argument that Jonathan Taylor is the #1 running back for the remainder of the season, and if we redrafted our drafts today, knowing what we know, he would have an incredible argument to be the 1.01 overall. So obviously, you can't go low-balling offers for Jonathan Taylor just in an attempt to buy low. This is not what that is. I'm not buying low on Jonathan Taylor. This is 100% a buy high, but it's at a time where what feels like an overpay today could be an underpay a month or 2 from now if Jonathan Taylor is still doing this. And if he really is being 2024 Saquon Barkley, it is going to be very difficult to win your league without that player. So you need to start trade offers with your RB1 plus. I'm talking trading Saquon Barkley plus, Bucky Irving plus, Devon Achane plus, Kenneth Walker plus, Josh Jacobs plus. Maybe you can get lucky and you can do Javonte or ETM plus if that plus is another like top 20 wide receiver or something. If you have Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, James Cook, or Derrick Henry, and you don't want to move them for Jonathan Taylor, I get it. Those guys are studs. They're top 5 running backs for the rest of the year too, but everyone else is absolutely in play to be traded for Jonathan Taylor right now. And I actually just mentioned my second trade target this week. It is James Cook, one of 2 running backs in fantasy football with 20-plus PPR fantasy points in all 3 games. It's him and then Christian McCaffrey. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of James Cook entering the season because of the touchdown regression from last year. I wasn't out on him. I was totally fine drafting him in round 3, but I wasn't in on him as I should have been because James Cook just doesn't care about regression. And it makes sense because he's the RB1 for one of the best offenses in the league. We should have expected double-digit touchdowns again this year. 16 is a lot, but going from 16 down to 12 shouldn't have been an improbable projection and wouldn't have impacted his fantasy production as much as we initially thought. And he's proving it right now through 3 weeks. 100 total yards in all 3 games, a touchdown in all 3 games, and all of that on a minimum of 18 touches, but he's been over 20 touches the last 2 weeks. He's just an elite running back playing in an elite offense. It's very plain and simple. So again, like Jonathan Taylor, this is a buy high situation with pretty much the same trade offers that I'm sending for Jonathan Taylor, also them being sent for James Cook. Bucky, Walker, Kyron, Javonte, ETN, add a decent wide receiver with any of those guys, and just go get James Cook as your new RB1. The last running back that I wanted to mention this week as a buy is new Cardinals starting running back Trey Benson after James Conner suffered a season-ending injury on Sunday. Poor one out for James Conner and his underrated production for the last few years, but now all eyes are on the second-year Trey Benson, who many believe was drafted last year as the heir to the Cardinals backfield when James Conner was done, and now he gets a fantastic opportunity to prove us right. According to Dwayne McFarland of Fantasy Life, after Conner went down, Benson played 87% of snaps, accounted for 71% of the Cardinals' rush attempts, and ran 50% of routes with a season-long 13% target share. That is incredible utilization for a running back, especially one whose main competition now is Amari DeMarcado and Zonovan Knight. Personally, my expectation is that Benson is a borderline top 15 running back rest of season with an absolute floor of just a solid weekly RB2. And because most people drafted Benson in the double-digit rounds of your drafts, they probably have a couple of players that are better options at the position and may not even be able to start Benson right now, or they're benching someone else who really shouldn't be started in favor of Trey Benson. So maybe they want to use this opportunity to quote-unquote sell high on Trey Benson. I think if you are someone who wants to get out from a DeAndre Swift or a Tony Pollard or a David Montgomery or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt type of running back, maybe even get out from under Chase Brown or Breece Hall right now with the way that they're producing, then go after Trey Benson. Maybe you have injuries elsewhere. You need some depth as bye weeks start coming into play in 2 weeks, and you can sell ETN for Trey Benson plus, Kyron Williams for Trey Benson plus, Javonte for Trey Benson plus. Or you could go cross-positionally. You could trade your wide receiver 2 or your wide receiver 3 for Trey Benson if you need a running back and they need a wide receiver. I think I'm higher on Benson than most people based on his upside as the bell cow for Arizona. So what some people might view as a sell high right now, I probably view as a good trade to go buy Trey Benson. Moving over to the wide receiver position, I think one of the most underrated names in fantasy right now is Davante Adams because he is the wide receiver 2 on the LA Rams and playing behind a superstar Puka Nacua, who is the fantasy wide receiver 1 right now without even scoring a receiving touchdown. But Adams is the wide receiver 14, averaging 15.5 PPR points per game. He has seen at least 8 targets in all 3 games, including 13 targets in week 2. He is averaging currently a career high 16.4 yards per reception, so he's making catches and plays well down the field, and he has scored twice in 3 games. Honestly, the one area that's kind of lacking for Adams is catch percentage, and when I went back to watch Adams' targets this past week, I think it's mostly a timing thing between a quarterback and receiver who have never played together before, and they are still trying to figure things out. Adams' game against the Eagles could have been so much better. Stafford missed him on 4 different throws that 1 or 2 of them could have easily been touchdowns. One of them was a 40-yard post route over the middle of the field that Stafford was off by like a foot. So imagine when these two get their timing down as they continue to play together and get familiar with each other. Davante Adams is nowhere near washed, and Stafford is targeting the wide receiver position at a clip that is greater than the Kupp Puka days a couple years ago and greater than the Kupp Woods days a few years ago. Why? Probably because Davante Adams is a better wide receiver right now than Kupp was over the last 2 years and better than Robert Woods ever was. So what I would love to do is flip a well-recognized name at the position, but is a little volatile, and see if I can flip them for Davante Adams, even if I have to add some bench depth to do it. Take advantage of the Lamb injury and sell George Pickens for Davante Adams. Sell either Dolphins wide receivers, Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle for Davante Adams. Sell Chris Olave, DK Metcalf, Devonta Smith off of his big game, maybe even AJ Brown off of his big game. If you're kind of done with AJ Brown and you wanted a sell window, now might be a good time to go and enter a higher tier of wide receiver on a weekly basis by getting Davante Adams and just improving your overall starting lineup. Now at the tight end position, I think there might be a possible buy opportunity with Brock Bowers right now, who I know is dealing with a knee injury since the end of week 1, and I think that's a major reason for relatively bad performances in weeks 2 and 3. But bad Brock Bowers weeks still equate to tight end 1 production because it is Brock Bowers. But managers who drafted him as early as he was going in drafts might be regretting that decision when they see all the players that they passed on for Bowers doing well right now, like Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Maybe they even passed on him for Puka or Devon Achane. And I'm sure a lack in stud talent at other positions is probably hurting their team, and they may be desperate for a roster shakeup. Listen, I'm not advocating to give up your stud players for Brock Bowers right now, but I do think it's possible that you could package your decent starting tight end with a decent running back or wide receiver, whatever the Bowers team needs more, and pull away Brock Bowers. If you have Sam Laporta, Hunter Henry, Harold Fannin, Zach Ertz, Dalton Kincaid, even Travis Kelce for the name value, and you add a solid wide receiver 2 or even RB2, you could probably get Brock Bowers, which over the course of the season should be a major tight end upgrade as Bowers continues to get healthy from the knee injury. And if he returns to being Brock Bowers like he was all last year and was in week 1 this year, you're getting a positional advantage at somewhat of a discount right now by cashing in on some of your well-drafted depth. And lastly, I know a lot of people have been disappointed by the rookie class so far, especially all of the running backs, but this week saw a value bump for a lot of guys that if you were waiting to get on the train, now is the time because these trains are starting to leave the station. Quinshon Judkins is the workhorse RB1 in Cleveland we thought he would be before all that off-the-field stuff in July. He may still get suspended for a couple of games, but the path is set for Judkins to be a possible top 12 running back for the rest of the year, especially after what he just did to an elite Green Bay Packers defense. Omarion Hampton had his breakout game, and now Najee Harris is out for the rest of the year, paving the way for Hampton to be a bell cow for a great Chargers offense and also potentially be a top 12 running back for the remainder of the year. TreVeyon Henderson might finally be getting some snaps and usage after Ramondre Stevenson fumbled twice on Sunday, including one at the goal line that he should have scored on, but instead fumbled it away to Pittsburgh, and Antonio Gibson lost a fumble too. So it's only a matter of time before Henderson gets his shot to actually start a game, because after those fumbles by Ramondre and Gibson, Henderson was used as an elite workhorse for the remainder of that Steelers game. Cam Skattebo had a breakout Sunday night performance with over 120 total yards on 16 touches, including 6 receptions. Tyrone Tracy might be out for a few weeks with a shoulder injury, and even when he returns, if Cam Skattebo is continuing to do this consistently, he may never give up his role again. Alec Iomanner has sneakily become the wide receiver 1 in Tennessee with back-to-back 13-plus PPR performances, and he has basically been as productive for fantasy as DK Metcalf, Ladd McConkey, and Tedoroa McMillan. He might still be on your waiver wire right now, and if so, definitely add him, but if not, I wouldn't go out and trade outright for Alec, but I would be adding him in a bigger trade as like a 2-for-2, 2-for-3, 3-for-2 kind of deal, and see if you can pull away Alec Iomanner in a bigger deal where he's not really the focal point. Speaking of Tedoroa McMillan, I always love buying a rookie with as huge of a role as he's had immediately. He just had a bad week 3 because Carolina crushed the Falcons this week, and they didn't really need him. Same goes for Tyler Warren, as Indianapolis crushed Tennessee with Jonathan Taylor, and they just didn't need Tyler Warren this week. But both of those guys have huge target shares and will be great more often than not for the remainder of the year, especially as they enter that second half breakout window post-bye week that we so often see from rookies every single year. Buy now on both of these guys while they're still relatively cheap-ish compared to where they could be by November and your trade deadlines. And this is not so much trade advice because they're on every single waiver wire out there, but keep an eye on my guys Torrey Horton and Oronde Gadsden, who both had strong performances in week 3 that could be indicative of bigger roles down the road into those second half rookie surges. With all the season-ending injuries that we had this week where you're dropping James Conner and Najee Harris, or you dropped Joe Burrow last week, or even just the multi-week injuries in general that you can throw them on IR and you clear up a roster spot like CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Tyrone Tracy, take a look at Torrey Horton or Oronde Gadsden as a stash right now just to see what happens. But if you're looking for some other names to buy or just moves to make in general after week 3, I highly recommend checking out Kayla's video from earlier this week right up here.